Today, I'm very delighted to introduce our chair of the session, Dr. Padmakali Banerjee, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor and Dean Academics, Amit University, Haryana. She is a thought leader, life coach, and author of the best selling category book from Sage Publications, The Power of Positivity, Optimism, and the Seventh Sense. She is the driving force and instrumental in key strategic academic initiatives, very specifically with the flexible credit system, industry academia integration, internationalization, and many more. She is an executive, life coach, and psychologist. Very happy to have you on board, ma'am. Thank you very much for your valuable time and presence here this afternoon. I am equally delighted to have the very experienced and knowledgeable panelists to share their point of view on this topic, bridging the gap between school and university. Our eminent panelists amongst us today are Shri Akhilesh Chandra Chaturvedi, Principal DPS Maruti Kunj, Gurugram. We have with us Dr. Shelly Bhutani, Advisor, Sunrise International School, Sonipat, Madam Charumani, Principal, DAV Public School, Gurugram. Then we have Madam Minu Dubey, Principal, Euro International School, Dharuhera. May I now request Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Ma'am to address the topic of discussion on bridging the gap between school and university to set the platform and take this discussion forward. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to one and all. And at the onset, let me tell you, I'm extremely delighted and I'm happy to host this panel. And the idea of bringing all such experts to this panel is to create thought leadership, getting each of your most pertinent points that will be put together. And each one of you are also part of this prestigious Academic Thought Leadership Forum, which has been initiated to spearhead leadership issues associated to K-12 schools and transition into higher education. So that means I'm welcoming you on board of the Academic Thought Leadership Forum, as well as for this particular panel today. And in fact, I think this day we are going to remember, I think 28th of April 2020 will never come when we are witnessing such a tremendous change and crisis around us. So we have been talking about the crisis, the corona crisis, the war, the virus. So this is something which is unprecedented in decades of our experiences. We have not witnessed what we are witnessing today. So similarly, not only us as academic people who are, each one of you are handling in your best of your capabilities through your leadership and decision making, you're handling this crisis in the school, but it is also important to identify and understand what the young boys and girls are handling, because at much younger age, they have to go into such a tremendous change. So I would like to bring onto the table some of the thoughts which is associated to, which globally people are talking about, is the kind of a learning poverty which is there in spite of I would say dedication of teachers, in spite of the fact that curriculum is being revised. Yet, if you see globally, we still are lagging behind in many ways. So can we really think about a seamless transition from school to college? And what are the kind of skills and competencies that youngsters need to equip themselves with? And in that context, how are we preparing our schools through the use of the ICT and the digital platform? Similarly, how are you training your teachers to in order to become the facilitators? And the most important thing is the students have to be lifelong learners, because the kind of change that they're going to witness is tremendous. And we have to understand that they are also dealing with a lot of emotional upheavals, from the fact that there is so much of emphasis in schools about teacher-led classrooms, to suddenly when they are online and they have to be a little more responsible to do research-based learning. There is a huge, I would say, shift that has happened even in this last 2 months. And per se, initial few days, schools did struggle, but within the last 1 month, I was looking at the data, not only in Delhi NCR, but overall India, we have done fairly well. One of the big reasons, of course, is that India had moved towards digital platform a couple of years back. And that's, I think, one of the good policy decisions that the government had taken. Yet, we have lots to do before we can take up these challenges and bring our students to that level that they are able to compete with the global world. Very good news about India is yes, we are a young nation. Equally important is our responsibility to help these students shape up their lives into a holistic personality who can handle the chaotic world in front of them. So I'm very curious and I'm going to listen carefully to each of you and your ideas and your thoughts about this so important area of, how their transition takes place from school to college and how schools are really preparing their students in order to move to the next more challenging level where they will be suddenly very independent. They will be doing much more application oriented classes and a lot of research, and of course interact with the industry at the same time. So thank you, and I welcome each one of you once again to this great platform. And before I end here, I must tell you, along with Dr. Roomkey, I have two very significant, important people. Mr. Sachin, who was already connected with you and have invited you here as a director of marketing. So Sachin, we are very delighted that our academic leadership forum has taken such a great start. And also I must acknowledge the presence of Dr. Reena Nigam, who is the head of skills initiatives at Amity. Reena, thank you for your presence today in
So
documenting the discussions. Yeah, discussions today. So all the best, and let's start now. Thank you.
So to begin with today's agenda and to hear all the panelists on the theme today, we begin with Shri Akhilesh Chandra Chaturvedi. Sir, how do we ensure application-based experiential learning rather than rote learning?
Good afternoon, everyone. Topic experiential learning and the rote learning, very close to my heart. Being a man of physics, I always believe in the experiments. When we talk about the rote learning and the experiential learning, I'll try to explain it. First, I would like to talk a little bit about the rote learning. Then I'll speak about the experiential learning, the advantages of experiential learning, and then I'll also, in the end, I'll talk how we can inculcate this experiential learning in our schools. When we talk about the learning means acquiring information somehow. Now then we need to find ways how we can acquire a particular information. The easiest part is to find some data about the information and then read it again and again, memorize it. We can call it to be the cramming also. And so automatically we believe that the learning is being done. In that we could say this is the rote learning. That means any learning which is acquired by memorizing, that becomes a rote learning. And whenever is needed, then the same memory that can again be taken out and can be used. But the biggest drawback of this rote learning is when somebody learns, then it is not confirmed whether he has understood what he has learned. And then it is also not necessary that when he requires that learning, then he will be able to recollect in his memories. Like you must have heard about this Mahabharata, the Karna, like he was said, when you will be needing your Vidya, the maximum, then it will not be of your use. So then he could not use it. So then the question arises, what to do for that? Then it comes, like we need to find some ways and means by which the memory or the learning which we have acquired, that we should be able to retain with us. Then various theories also comes. Then they say any learning which is done by the listening only, one is able to retain hardly 20% the very next day. Any learning which is somebody listens and the sees also is able to retain around say 50%. And a particular learning which somebody listens and then sees and does by himself, that the fellow is able to retain around 90% the very next. So then this something we call that becomes the part of experiential learning. What is the meaning of experiential learning? The learning which is learned by the experience, learning by doing something. In experiential learning, the learner is directly involved. It's not that, say, like in the rote learning, it's only a one way. The one particular person is speaking and others are keeping mum and they are just listening in it. In experiential learning, the one is actually involved. This learning methodology enhances the critical thinking, problem solving, decision-making skills of the students. Students, they get first-hand experience of the concepts learned, and hence they are able to bridge the gap between theory and knowledge. The learner is directly involved and actively in their own learning path, and the level of engagement and the ownership is also very high. Students are able to understand the concepts better. Students are having the opportunity to be more creative. Students have the opportunity to reflect. Students, they commit certain mistakes, and then from the mistakes, they always learn. We say we need to listen to our seniors is not because they are more experienced, because they have experience of more mistakes. And when somebody does a mistake, then it's always a learning. I would like to put up one important point here regarding this Thomas Alva Edison, the great scientist who has invented the bulb. He was not able to make the bulb the very first time. He has many failures. And then when he already had 999 failures, then one of his colleagues came and said, "Dear Mr. Edison, when you are going to perform your 1,000 failures?" And then what he simply said, "My dear friend, it's not going to be my 1,000 failures. I know 999 ways by which a bulb could not be made." So that means when somebody is doing something, is involving directly in that situation, is learning properly. Now, how this can be done in these schools? I would like to quote what we do at DPS Maruti Kunj. We try to make our curriculum, which is more activity-based, project-based, and the projects which are being done, they are done by the children in the school itself. It's not that the project is being assigned and then they take it home and the parents are involved and then they are helping them to make a particular project. The various topics, which the science topics especially I'll talk, which have got some practicals also, then it's preferred that they should be taught in the lab. While doing those experiments, the students learn. For example, the various topics of physics, like potentiometer, the meter bridge, the Ohm's law, that instead of teaching them in the classroom and then taking them into the laboratory to explain, what we do, we take the children inside the lab itself, and there itself we explain the theory and the practical both, and the various topics are there in the ray optics as well. So, and all those, so like maybe we have to teach wherever it is feasible for us to take children out of the classroom and explain the concept with a live experience, that we try to do it. More and more field visits have been organized. The children are being taken outside also. So that's the way probably if we try to implement certain things, then probably we are able to give them a better understanding of the concept, and then they will be able to do much better. Because when we have this experiential learning, when the learning by doing, the students, they also learn certain life skills by itself. When they do something, they also try to find is that there are more than one ways to solve a particular problem. And when they see among their peer group the way they have solved a particular problem and the other fellows have solved a problem, then they are able to differentiate between them and the others. So probably these are some of the areas by which if we take care and then probably we give a better platform to the students, then that will be a good learning to them. So this probably will help them to when they go after the class 12 to a college or when they go in these various competitive examinations, then there they face lesser problem and becomes the better citizen. So that's all I wanted to say about.
I would request Dr. Shaili Bhutani, advisor, Sunrise International School, Sonipat. Ma'am, it is important to train the students in life skills. Now, how do you train your students in these fundamental skills?
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It's very important nowadays that to train the students through the fundamental skills because skills such as resilience, communication, proactivity, and leadership are just some of the areas that are essential when facing the challenges of 21st century this landscape. But it's not always clear how we have to teach these with our children. Sustaining young people efforts when facing big challenges and equipping them with the skill set they will need to prepare for all unseen future. It's a significant task for them, but it does not have to be taunting one. And in all areas I can develop the only 5 steps where I can see that these fundamental skills should be very, very important for our children. Number one, we have to teach collaboration as a value and skill set because young people need new skills for the current and future workplace that will make them ready to collaborate with others, not only their own classrooms or workplace, but potentially with others across the planet. Encouraging students to work together with this skill on creative challenge and allowing them to reflect on the learnings, take them from their courses or exercises, it will be help them better understand what it means to be a part of an increasingly collaborative and connected world. Second thing, if I'll take second step or second advice for this fundamental skill, that should be built on evaluation and analysis. Because every time new information is being discovered and shared at an ever growing rate, predictions show that 50% of the facts students are memorizing today that will no longer be accurate or complete in the near future about it. Students need to know not only how to find accurate information, but also how to critically analyze its reliability and usefulness. That is build research based task and skill set for their work. Why not try the live skill in 21st century skills? I really recommend this build on evaluation analysis to get students thinking about the sorts of the way they could put these skills into action. A very third step I just want to introduce here, that should be teach tolerance and resilience. Because to successfully work in a growing collaborative and global community, we should have be looking for candidates who show an ability, especially employers of the company and of the school, that always be looking for candidates who show an ability and openness to communicate with unfamiliar culture and ideas. So to build this skill, students will need to exposure to open discussions and experience that can help them feel very comfortable commuting with others. And sometimes they can be do this in school trips, debating session, or visit to any workplace where there is question and answer. There's all good ways of showing students open mindset in action. And fourthly, I'll just go for help students learn through their own strengths, because as we are all born with brains that want to learn, we are also born with different strengths, and by growing the strengths we must identify with we can better feed that appetite for learning. One size certainly does not fit all when it comes to developing young minds. It can be challenging to tailor the curriculum for each individual, or by looking ahead We can start to pinpoint elements of our classes for the student, which will appeal to particular students' strength and their interests. And beyond this, I really want to, in a last point, I really want to discuss that is always learning in a classroom, because learning beyond the classroom, nothing can be done. By using what they learn repeatedly in different personally meaningful ways, students will find it much easier to retain and retrieve what they learn in the classroom. It definitely will also help them better understand the importance of certain skills in their everyday and future lives, providing opportunities for the student to transfer school learning to real life situations, or for example, when looking at the solving a problem, ask students how they would approach a scenario that could happen to them and the steps they would go through to solve it. We can make a start with the life skill problem solving lesson plan, which really sets out an approach to systematically tackle challenges and with real life scenarios to inspire our students. So students must have their self-awareness, they have empathy and critical, creative and decision-making thinking, so that they can solve their problems with effective communication and interpersonal relationship. So this is my best way to introduce that how we can train our student with these fundamental skills.
So taking this forward and taking the thoughts forward from Dr. Shelley, we have with us Madam Charu Maini, Principal DAV Public School, Gurugram. So, ma'am, we could rather try to understand or, try to observe your thought process. What could be the challenges, or rather, what are the challenges that the student experience in making a transition from the school to college?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rumki. And thank you, Dr. Padmakali. Your thoughts on making lifelong learners and the 6 C's and the 3 T's. Really, I would like to start my talk from there. Because when you say that what challenges one faces when there is a transition from school to college. So as a school principal, we have to be really careful about the 2 things. And those 2 things are the transition from childhood to adulthood. We have to make the child ready for this particular transition. The child is ready to take on the challenges of the adulthood, where the child is going from a protected cocoon-like environment to the VUCA world. The VUCA world, which we say, the world which is volatile, unpredictable. It is complex and ambiguous. We do not know. Who knew that we are going to face this coronavirus crisis? Who is going to survive this? Only the person who's resilient. As ma'am just before me and Dr. Shelley said, we have to be resilient. Okay, so these are the tactics that we have to teach our students. We have to make them aware of the challenges that the life is going to pose to them. And there is another kind of challenges where to transit. One is the life skill challenge, another is where to transit. So the school has both the responsibilities. We have to make our students ready for the challenges, that what kind of university, what kind of college they have to choose, what kind of course they should be choosing, so that they are ready to take on the life head on. So when we talk about the challenges of transforming to the adulthood, there we have to give them a survival kit. And here again, I would say what the Dr. Padmakali just said, that is a lifelong learner, a person who knows how to learn to learn. That is the basic life skill, learning to learn. A person only who is able to learn new things and to take on to the adversities of the life without unwavering, unflinching efforts, and can only succeed in this life. And for this, we say this is the survival life skill. And at my school at DAV Sector 49 Gurugram, because you said Gurugram, I have to say because in Gurugram there are 3 other DAVs. So it is my school is at Uppal South End, Sector 49. So the basic survival life skills like cooking a simple meal, sew torn clothing, a simple first aid, disaster management, just changing a bulb or a tube light, or simple making electrical connections. These are the we'll say these are the survival life skills. Now, in these cases of COVID lockdown, like my daughter is there and locked up in London, she is able to survive only because she knows all these things. She knows the basic first aid and all those things. So we have to provide these survival life skills. Besides that, the other life skills that the other panelists have been talking about, problem solving, decision making, etc. When the child is moving from school to college, the time management is one thing that the child has to learn, because in the school it is all structured environment. From there, the child has to move, has to know himself or herself how to manage his or her time, how to manage the academic workload. And for this, at our school, we use flipped learning. When we talk of flipped learning, we are, as it is, giving some reading material, resource material to the child, some web links to the child about a particular topic. The child does a particular research and then comes back to the class and we do the assignments, etc. So the teacher is acting as a facilitator, which is, so I'm not saying that we do all the chapters like this, but yes, few of them like in this flipped learning manner. And now, especially nowadays, in this online teaching modules where we are doing, so flipped learning is helping us a lot. And this will, I'm sure, help them when they move from school to college. Then when I talk about at my school, what do? We have to make students ready for life. And at this, we have SMART. SMART means to School Medical Emergency Response Team. So at our school, we have created the SMART teams where the students understand how to behave in the and how to act in the situation where there is a adversity or where there is a disaster. Like recently, you all heard a very sad news where in Ahmedabad, the students they got caught up in fire when they were studying at an institute, Fiji or some particular institute. So why weren't they able to save themselves? Because the basic life skill of how to save themselves during fire was not there. They were all only studying academics. And as Dr. Akhilesh just said, that हमें academics तो आता है, but how to take that academics to the application, that is what is to be learned. Mr. Akhilesh was talking about the physics in the labs. But besides physics in the lab, are we talking to the parents and teachers that there is application at home, in kitchen? Are the students at lower level taught how the difference between boiling of milk and boiling of water? Why does a chapati gets fluffed up? What happens? And for this, the child has to enter the kitchen, stand beside the person who is working in the kitchen, mother, father, or whosoever the house help. So that's there. Then simple thing like when we are doing washing of the pulses and washing of leafy vegetable, the simple method of decantation and sedimentation, that can be taught. So we have to take this curriculum to home. The curriculum is not to be just closed up into the books. It has to see the light of home, the environment, and we have to break this curriculum to the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum is much more important than the syllabi that's written in the books. And that hidden curriculum is giving the child the challenge and know how to face the challenges of life. Another thing that we do at our school is we have a project called Raises, Dhara Se Gagan Ki Or, where the students design their own project. They collect the raw material, they make things, and then they from making till selling. And they have to prepare the whole accounts, bookkeeping, etc. So that is again preparing them for the life. Okay, and students design the inter-school events like e-waste collection drives, disaster management systems. All these things are there. Next thing was when I said challenges, one was student to adulthood. Another is from where to transit. That is another challenge, for which the school has to prepare. And recently we had a college and university fair at our school. The Amity University also came to our school, and the response was wonderful. The students they got exposed to what all different careers are available and how to choose the best one that suits my aptitude or an attitude both along with this. So the school has to create such an environment where the child is being exposed to both the things. So that is from me. And as one last one bit, as Dr. Padmakali has said, that the global sorry, SGD4, the SGD, we see the out of the 17 SGDs, the education comes at number 4, because after poverty and water and sanitation, education is taking the first and is taking the topmost position. So we have to take care that we as educators have to take care of the curriculum that's there in the books, as well as the hidden curriculum that is taking the life skills to the books. Thank you.
Can we move to Madam Meenu Dubey? She is Principal Euro International School, Dharuhera. Ma'am, if I can ask you, how do we ensure that the students across all disciplines are prepared for the pedagogy adopted in higher education?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank to Rukmi ma'am and Sachin sir and Mayank also, because all of you have taken that much of initiative to join us together. As you have asked me, ma'am, what would be the better, how when the students are shifting from school to college and how they are going to mesh up with the things. I would go with the sir, as Akhilesh Chaudhary sir has said, that we give them some practical knowledge as well. Without practical knowledge, students would not be able to cope up with the situation. As we all are as a principal also, as a teachers also, schools are providing so many things up to 8th and 9th class only, because 9th onwards everyone is focusing on the bookish knowledge. And I personally feel that education is beyond the book. It's not only in the books nowadays. Only I think 30 to 40% books are going to help it out while doing the learning from the books. Still, if you are not doing all these things practically, you are not facing all those things, the students are not going to get there, settle there themselves in such type of situation which we are facing nowadays. So this is the thing which I want to tell, without the cooperation of parent as well. Though schools are taking initiative, institutions are also taking initiative. Somewhere we are thinking that such type of conferencing should be with the parents as well. Without parent support, because sometimes whatever we are telling them, they are not going to cooperate with us. So in this regard, it's a need of a time that we should ask our parents involvement should be there. Without their guidance, without their support, whatever the planning we institutional educators.
Now we have on board Madam Ranpreet Kaur, who has also joined with us. So she is the principal of RPS Dharuhera. Ma'am, the need of the hour is of constructive learning, flexible and innovative pedagogy, dynamic interaction, and reflective thinking. Now, how do we ensure in bridging the gap between school and curriculum and higher education learning environment? If you could put your thoughts together, please, ma'am. Over to you, Madam Ranpreet Kaur.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rumki.
Yeah.
I think the question is very, very apt for this. How we can, the bridge the gap between the school and the higher education. Actually, the concern is always what happens when the universities like, good universities like Amity University, they always plan that, the school children should come and, go and visit the university campus. Whereas I feel is it should be the other way out, that the students of university campus, they come and they join the children of the school and they suggest the management that how is the environment. When they go into the school children, when they visit the universities or, to have some experience how it is going on. It doesn't work that very well. I really contradict. I feel that it should be that the university children, they are coming and they are actually telling them that whatever you are doing right now, that would help you what you will do in the future. What kind of the future perspectives are there? Yeah. So actually, we very well know that a child is always curious to step into the shoe of the father. But but when the child tries to walk, the child falls because it doesn't fit. Rather, it should be the other way. A father should try to come into the situation of the child to see how it feels it to be and how I have to train that child to grow as a mature human being. Whenever they go, some of them get confused because they are not. When a child steps into a university, it's a very open world for the child, and a child doesn't know where to start and where is the horizon. It's too huge. So therefore, what I feel is that some kind of activities should be there, planned in the curriculum, that some kind of activities where the university students and the school students, both of them come together and they do those activities in the environment which is more comfortable for a school child rather than for the child who is there in the university. So many projects are there which are, the university students get many opportunities, many projects, whereas the school children are generally, what but we try to inculcate activities into their curriculum. But when I'm specifically talking about grade 11, 12 children, the school is always focused to how to train them to get good marks so that they get into a good university or a good college, right? But they have a limited access to those activities, whereas in university the children, they generally study on their own. Of course, they have their own lectures, but they have got more and more practical projects to work on where they feel they don't have that much time and they need more helping hands. So those helping hands could be the school children. So if somehow universities plan it like that the school children and the university students, they work on a project which could be anything related to the, if I say right now, if we say the situation is like this, like in this situation, we can ask to compare the number of patients to statistics, how the statistics are going up and down. The commerce students can work on the economy, how the stock markets are working. And if we want to talk about science children, they can see that, how this, what are the conditions under which the growth of the corona is favorable. They can actually study more about virus or any other, they can go and trace the history that such kind of pandemics, how did they happen, what was the effect and all those ways. So I really feel that what school children have got, they are very curious. They are very curious. They have got limited content, but of course they are worried to get good grades. Whereas college children, they have more. We feel they have more responsibilities, but they feel that they don't have that helping hand. So if college students and the school students, they come together and work for the projects, I feel that will really help to this shorten the gap between the schools as well as the universities. Thank you.
So, with this note, may I request Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, Professor Padmakali Banerjee, if Ma'am could, address her concluding remarks. Subsequently, I would also take 60 minutes, 60 seconds of time from each one of you to conclude with your thoughts for this particular theme of today's afternoon session. Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, if you could please, give your thoughts on your concluding remarks of this afternoon session.
Thank you to each one of you. I think it was a pleasure listening to all your points. I think there was a lot of passion, experience, wish, wants that I could hear from each one of you. So I was just thinking to categorize your thoughts into 5 major areas. So just for the clarity of what we have done,
I was quickly looking at the points and I've categorized them into these 5 areas. One, we have all spoken about integrated partnership, which is definitely a technical, technology driven collaboration, which means like our last, principle, she was talking about how you can have college students partner with the school students to work on projects, or in a partnership where a league of good schools can come together and create something which is very good, or the partnership and collaboration could be among schools students, or a technology company coming and helping the schools, or a university coming and helping schools in lots of things like career counseling, or the kind of programs that we offer, for example School Connect, where the teachers can help the students for career choices. So there is a huge importance of integrated partnership that we are seeing in kinds of improving the quality of education. The second area that I'm looking at from the points that have come together is definitely innovation and adaptability. Right from the point that we have talked about that use of scientific methods in a more experiential way, experiential learning, simulated learning methods, and all of that are like innovations in teaching learning, innovations in the curriculum, or even adaptability, that how do you adapt to a particular situation and handle the crisis. What better than now is a good example of adaptability. So whatever is going on, the crisis, the roller coaster ride of the Sensex index, the kind of flexibility that we have shown, including the teachers, including students. Of course, I must tell you, in this, they were the front runners because they were very savvy with technology. So in this case, in fact, the children, even I was talking to a lot of young parents, even their wards, in fact, parents may not know how to handle that technology, but the students are doing. So definitely innovation and adaptability, innovation in teaching learning. The third point is lifelong learning, like we have been talking about, and very interesting points have come on, even disaster management. And I like that smart example which was given, where we are talking about how do you create them as curious learners? How can their critical thinking and creativity bring about new knowledge? So we are not going to teach them the same old knowledge. So they have to also create knowledge. They'll all be tomorrow innovators and entrepreneurs. Then I'm also talking about, many of you have spoken together. So another category, the fourth category that I have created is the competencies. So whether it is behavioral competencies, whether there are competencies related to problem solving, risk taking, all of these kind of competencies, or technology competencies, or mathematical, numerical ability, which could also become a competency. So I think one really needs to identify those competencies with, and of course, you will take help of the robotics, you can take help of artificial intelligence, but this needs to be built into the school environment, which will help them in the transition. And finally, how are we in the schools providing equal opportunities? How are we creating an environment or a platform in schools where everybody, so it's a more inclusive environment that we are creating. So for that, I just wanted to mention, because I think in the onset they had mentioned about my book. So I must tell you some examples, if we take from the leaders and just look at their characteristics, even if we able to imbibe those characters in our children, I think lot can be done. For example, if you look at, say, Gandhi as a leader, somebody who was a visionary as a leader, Vivekananda, who was a thinker. So how many thinkers are we really helping in the schools to develop? Then if you look at J.R.D. Tata as a revolutionary, how he revolutionized the entire industrialization in India in those contexts post, I would say, independence. Look at Mark Zuckerberg creating something out of communication. So great collaborator. Then if you look at, of course, if you look at Tagore, we are talking of as a philosopher, and the kind of work that he has left behind as a Nobel laureate. In today's time also, we are able to learn so much. Then we are looking at Steve Jobs as a innovator. Like, how do you innovate things? Apple today, the way it has grown is all out of innovation. How a person from learning of calligraphy could take it to creating such a beautiful Macintosh is something worth learning. Or for example, you look at a go-getter like Oprah Winfrey, and anybody would like to be like one, somebody who's successful. Or like look at the people who have the creative genius, for example, who doesn't know Walt Disney. So I think if these kind of leaders are also looked at in the school, and because we are preparing these students to take them to the higher education platform. So here, for example, in a university, say Amity University, we are providing them a flexible curriculum, a lot of application-based, project-based learning, live classrooms, use of all of, some of you interestingly mentioned about flipped classroom, blended. This is the way of life. But these are all means to the end. What is the end? End is the new knowledge, end is something co-creating, I would say. And there's going to be a lot of peer learning. So a lot of these young students would come up with ideas. So I think it's a great way to bring all of your thoughts together in this area. And what I would suggest now, that when you are going to give your 1 minute or about 30 seconds or 1 minute you want to conclude, so kindly give your highlighting points that we will capture together. And I would also suggest that Dr. Rum and Sachin and Dr. Dina, that when we have any other point that the principals or the head of the institution wants to send it to you, that they wanted to speak, have not yet spoken, that can be also received, so that when we are preparing the white paper, that can be included.
Thank you very much, ma'am. In fact, the examples that you have cited from the visionary leaders itself is so inspiring and motivating, even to each one of us. I'm sure when these examples will be cited from the principals or the faculty members of each of the school, the students should be very, very well benefited. And this is exactly what is application-based knowledge sharing altogether. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your ever vibrant and pertinent thoughts to put down all these together as such.
तान धीं तान